Hello everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. Oklahoma cotton producers are putting the wraps on this year's crop that definitely saw its share of challenges, from a rainy start to an early freeze that damaged thousands of acres. This week, SUNUP's Curtis Hare is in western Oklahoma, visiting with a producer who overcame some of those weather obstacles.
An aching wet north wind rolls over Jimmy Smith's farm in Beckham County, hitting the pause button on cotton harvest. For Jimmy, starting and stopping has become normal since firing up the stripper.
Yeah, we started harvesting probably 3 weeks ago, and when we first started, we had defoliated everything, but we were getting these days similar to today, and we could only run like 4 hours a day, and it's hard to get anything done.
Although there's been batches of days like this, recently a full week of great weather allowed Jimmy to cover a lot of ground.
We're about probably 2/3 done. So we've had some really good weather this past week to get it. And weather like this, we just can't do anything.
The fact Jimmy has a crop to worry about at all is amazing considering the situation he was facing the last time we spoke with him. Beckham County bore the brunt of the late spring rains that pummeled the state, delaying planting and leaving producers like Jimmy wondering if they would even have a crop to harvest.
We were so wet out here, we got so much rain that it delayed us probably 2 weeks in planting, and even then, like this particular field here, we were having to go through terrace channels that were plumb full of water and raising our planter up and planting it back, and it was just planted in pure mud, some of it, but hey, it was that time of year we had to get it in the ground.
It wasn't just the amount of precipitation that was the problem, but also how the rain fell.
We do all no-till, and you can kind of see some of our rye out here. Some of this ground was so compacted because of the hard rain that we didn't get a good stand on our cover crop. So after harvest, we're having to come back in here and spot in some of our cover crop. But after that wet period, we kind of got a dry period then, and the stuff started to grow. And I'll be dang, it's not a fantastic crop, but we've got a crop.
But just as the cotton was coming along, an unexpected October freeze put his crop in jeopardy.
Luckily, we had everything defoliated, but I think when we defoliated a lot of this cotton, the weather was already kind of cool because we were a little late in the game. So that's the reason you see a lot of leaves out here. And then we got that freeze and it just stuck the leaves to it.
Despite the early summer rainfall and the unpredictable October freeze, Jimmy was able to pull off a crop. Beckham County Extension Director Greg Hartman says some producers in surrounding areas weren't as fortunate.
A lot of guys hadn't already got their prep put down. A lot of the bowls never did open back up, and by about the 13th or 14th of October, a lot of the cotton was already blackened and it was starting to die off, and so we got a lot of bowls that just never did open, and so the cotton crop never got a chance.
Well, I'm in my 60s and been farming all my life with my dad and my granddad, and I have to say this is probably the weirdest year I've ever seen. I am really surprised, and when we were planting this stuff in muddy conditions, I honestly thought it would be a crop insurance year where we didn't harvest anything.
For Jimmy, though it might not be the best crop, it's a crop. With about a third of it left to go, he needs just a few more days of dry weather so he can hit the play button on harvest.
Hopefully this weekend, they're talking like good sunny weather. Maybe we can get started again, maybe this weekend, but then next week they're talking a little bit more rain. So I don't know, you never know. That's just the way farming is.
So Seth, talking with Jimmy, he was lucky enough to get some harvest days before that big freeze happened in October, but other producers weren't as lucky. How big of an impact did that mid-October freeze have on the cotton crop now that we're getting into harvest?
Yeah, you certainly saw at least a visual impact so far. We're getting some grades back. I'll say that the cotton that didn't get that harvested application on, we're probably in a lot of areas just getting into that crop. A lot of the crop that saw harvest application was our better cotton. And so far on that, and even some of that wasn't ideal when we, that freeze may have came within a week or 10 days of an application. But so far, both our yields are okay. They're not where we thought they would be, but our grades are looking pretty good.
Yeah, moving on to like the overall picture, how far, are we along in harvest going right now? We're, toward getting into December.
Yeah, so we've gotten most of the irrigated crop out, and what you'll normally see is that the irrigated crop is usually our one we're going to try to get to first. It's usually our better cotton, obviously, and higher quality. A lot of areas where you have more predominant dry land, they're still going to stick to that better end of the dry land scale first. So in the southwest corner, which is where I've been spending a lot of time recently, most of the irrigated crop is out. A lot of folks have moved on to the dry land side, but there's still some pivots left that need to be picked or stripped. As you move further north in sort of the west central area, same general thing. We're getting a lot of the irrigated out still, and you do have big pockets there of dry land where we're seeing some of that crop come out. And then in other areas where we don't have a whole lot of cotton, there's been a lot of areas that have probably, what little cotton they had, such as the Panhandle or other areas, it's almost all out by now. And again, luckily we're seeing grades come back on what we've got so far, and everything as far as quality wise is looking really good. And so after the rough start of the year and the rough sort of end of the year, that's a good sign so far.
Yeah, talking with Jimmy, he's been farming pretty much his entire life. He's, in his 60s. He said this is one of the weirdest years he's ever seen.
Yeah.
In your opinion, how, are you surprised that the cotton is maybe as good as it is considering, the elements that it's had to face?
Yeah. Well, I'll say that I was certainly surprised if we go to September how good we were looking. And then I think now a lot of us are surprised on how light it seems to be weighing. You look at a field that you think is going to be, a 3.5 bale field, and it's coming in 3 bales or less. And we're not seeing it. A lot of times you'll see low mic cause low weights, and we're not seeing that. Our micronair is good. It's a mature crop. So I think it's been a roller coaster year. We started pretty low and we kind of got excited, and then the heat turned on, we got worried, and then we got excited again near the end, and now we're harvesting and we're not sure what to think.
All right, thanks, Seth. Seth Byrd, Cotton Extension Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
Hello, Wes Lee here with your weekly Mesonet weather report. On this Thanksgiving week, I am thankful for the rainfall that drives our crop production. As of Tuesday morning, that rainfall was pretty scarce for the past 5 days in the western half of Oklahoma. Hopefully, expected rainfall later in the week will add to this total. Rainfall probabilities for the first week of December have a big N over the state, indicating equal chances of wetter or drier than normal conditions. Rain is important, but even more so is how much of it moves into the soil profile for future crop use. To determine this, we use a series of soil sensors in our Mesonet system. They are located at 4 different depths, 2, 4, 10, and 24 inches under a grass sod at each tower. Along with that, we also have a 4-inch sensor under a bare soil plot. This map is the inches of available water on Tuesday in the top 4 inches of soil. The red colors show the driest areas like the Panhandle and the far southwest. Plant available water is very dependent on the soil makeup analyzed at each Mesonet tower. For example, a clay soil might be able to hold 3 times more moisture than a sandy soil. A second way to look at the data is with percent plant available water. Here, inches of water available are compared to the maximum holding capacity of the soil and converted to a percent. The percent plant available water map for Tuesday at 4 inches shows 100% plant available water throughout most of the eastern 2/3 of the state, but goes all the way down to 8% in Boise City. This picture gives us an illustration of how plant available water is determined. I like to think of it as a measurement of a slice of soil. For the 4-inch slice of soil, it uses a 2-inch sensor. It is located in the middle of the 4-inch slice to get the best estimation of what is going on above and below the sensor. This is kind of like placing a thermometer in the middle of a turkey to estimate the temperature of the entire bird. The 16-inch plant available water uses both the 2 and the 10-inch sensors to get the estimation of the water in this slice. The 32 uses 3 sensors. The third way that Mesonet presents soil moisture is with a fractional water index map. This method converts moisture into a scale that ranges from 0 to 1. 0 is the driest end of the scale and 1 is the wettest. On Tuesday, we see at 4 inches, most of the state is at 0.9 or 1, indicating wet soils. However, in the far west and especially in the panhandle, the numbers drop all the way to 0. Fractional water index is not a slice of soil, but a measurement at a particular depth. Think of it as how wet the sensor is at any of the 4 depths. The soil type does not influence this number. That's all for now, and I will see you next week on the Mesonet Weather Report.
We want to get an update now on Oklahoma's wheat crop with our Extension Small Grain Specialist, Amanda Silva. Dr. Silva, give us an idea of how things are looking across Oklahoma as we wind down November and kickstart December.
Yes, the temperatures have been a little cooler than normal, so some areas of the state like north central, the growth is not, like forage production is not as expected, so we have seen some slow growth. However, in some areas that producers were able to plant earlier, we've been seeing some good top growth, as you can see here.
So overall, the quality of the wheat looking okay as we kind of head into winter?
Yeah, so it's been a very quiet fall as far as diseases and pests, so we are not finding any diseases yet, any pests, well, other than the infestations that we had with fall armyworm early in the season. So for now, it's been quiet.
Did the early freeze have any impact on the wheat?
Yeah, so we see some we saw some yellow bands in the leaves, some brown burn of that cold, some symptoms, but the wheat should be okay and should grow out of it.
So these are your forage trials here. Talk about what you have set up here, and kind of this is indicative of what we'll see around Oklahoma depending on when people planted.
Yeah, so here we have the forage trials. So we planted about September 20th or so, and then those over there we planted a month after. So as you can see, in areas where producers were able to get that wheat planted, a good soil moisture, we should be seeing good top growth, and I think we'll have some cattle out soon and start grazing. And things to keep in mind when considering to putting the cattle out is check that top growth, about 6 to 8 inches of top growth, but also check the below ground, the crown root, if it's developed, to make sure the plant is well anchored in the soil, and so the cattle will not pull out the whole plant when they are eating.
What guidance do you have for producers then as we head into these colder months?
So one of the things to keep an eye on it's I've heard about people concerned about nitrogen deficiency, and so some areas that got a lot of rain maybe are showing some yellowing, so nitrogen maybe got leached out. Keep your eyes on those cowpocks in the field, as they can be an indicator of nitrogen deficiency.
Okay, thanks a lot, Amanda. We'll see you soon.
Italian ryegrass has been a problem for wheat growers across the state forever. And Misha, kind of talk about where we're at and what you're doing here.
Yeah, so this is our favorite Italian ryegrass field, mostly because the pH is really low, and ryegrass, we have a good ryegrass population. It competes well with the wheat. We're looking at herbicide applications at different timings, at the delayed pre-timing right after wheat has come up, and then also after wheat has come up.
What are you finding just in what you've done the applications for this year?
Yeah, so our delayed pre-timings, if they get incorporated by rain, which we have had rain this season, they have been doing very well, and those are a lot of the cleaner plots that you see out here. But we're past that timing for most folks that have wheat in the ground and that's already emerged, and ryegrass is up too. So if your ryegrass is up, the kind of go-to post-emergence application that we have is pinoxidin, sold as axial. And still doing a pretty good job, but we have documented 2 counties in Oklahoma, Grady and Caddo County, that do have resistance to the product. So if you are in a county where you suspect resistance, of course send it into our lab, and that is something we can confirm and find out for you.
Moving forward through the wheat growing season, when would be some good time for applications throughout the season?
Yeah, so with ryegrass, we usually get more than one flush.
Right.
So some folks like to go out in the late winter, early spring, because they don't want to go out twice, which is understandable. For other species that are more fall germinators, some folks like to go out in the winter, fall, winter, like feral rye, that usually has one flush. Some of our bromes have one flush. You have to balance that. If you wait till the spring, you have that competition all the way until the spring. But if you wait, you likely are going to get that whole population.
When it comes down to it, weed seeds can actually stay in the ground for a long time, and that's why we're constantly battling them.
Yes. Weed seed bank dynamics is kind of a complicated topic that's not easy to study. They can hang out in the soil for several years depending on the species, and sometimes they go dormant. We don't see them in 1 year, and then they resurface, or they come out of dormancy and we see them. So if you do have a dense population of a weed like we do in this field, unfortunately, it's not going to be one season that you eliminate that weed, but if you intensively manage it for, let's say, a couple of years or 3 years, you can see some serious gains.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Misha Manuchehri, Extension Weed Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
As we go into these fall and winter months, this is a really critical time for the nutrition of those bred heifers, those that are going to be those 2-year-olds next January, February, March, and having their first baby calf. It's going to be very, very important what the body condition of those heifers are at the time that they calve. And that's for several reasons. Body condition, or the fatness of those heifers the day that they calve, will go a long ways to determining how long it will take that heifer to recycle, to have a chance to rebreed for next year's calf crop. If you look at these 2 pictures, you'll see one heifer that's in excellent body condition. We'd call her a 6 on her 1 through 9 scale. And then the thinner heifer is a heifer that's a 3 or a 4 on her 1 through 9 scale, and I think is just way too thin to be in that kind of condition at calving time. As you compare those 2, I would expect something in the neighborhood of at least a month, perhaps even 60 days difference in how long it will take them to recycle to have a chance to rebreed for next year's calf crop. That means that that thinner heifer, the following year, her calf is either going to come very late, or we'll find her open or non-pregnant at preg checking time. That's not the only difference. When those cows calve, giving that first milk that's so critical to the health of that baby calf, the heifer that's in good body condition will be able to produce her genetic maximum in terms of the amount of milk and therefore the amount of colostrum that her baby will receive. The heifer that's thin at calving time will have less than her genetic capability of how much colostrum she can provide. Therefore, her calf may be cheated, and that calf is more likely then to become sick due to pathogens that are in the environment that can cause calf diarrhea or calf scours. and therefore we'll have a greater chance of having a sick calf from that thin heifer and perhaps even losing that calf. So there's several good reasons in my mind that we want to make sure as we go through the fall and winter months that we're getting the kind of feed, supplement, and hay available to those bred heifers so that when they're 2-year-olds and having that first calf, they're in good body condition. We want to make sure that they're getting enough energy and protein this winter so that they maintain that good body condition that they came out of the summer and going into the fall with. Keep that in mind. I think you'll be happier with certainly the performance of these young cows this year and on into the rest of their productive lives. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Earlier in the show, we heard from a cotton producer in western Oklahoma. And Kim, what can Oklahoma cotton producers expect for prices?
I think they're going to stay in the neighborhood of where they are. You know, they were up in the 70s and 80s, and with the massive cotton crop that we're getting in this year and around the world. They went down into the 50s for a while. They're back up in the 60s, and they'll probably stay in that area for the next few months.
A lot of the cotton grown in this part of the country actually travels overseas. Are there markets for the cotton still?
Well, there's markets for cotton. You know, China's a big cotton buyer, and the word on the street is that phase 1 of that agreement's going to be signed in the near future, that they're coming close to that agreement. Of course, we got to watch out on the soybean market, on the cotton markets, on the pork markets. It may be a case with China where you sell the rumor and buy the fact, in that when we get that agreement and that people expect higher prices, they'll hit the market with their commodities, and it'll actually drive prices down. So we got to be careful on our marketing strategies as we make this agreement, because we may not get price movements like we expect.
Are we seeing any price movements in the price of wheat right now?
Price of wheat is kind of walling around, but at least it's going in the right direction slowly. They are moving slightly higher. Our exports have been relatively good, and I think that's supporting our prices.
What kind of indicators are you watching for as that price weaves across the road?
Well, in the short run, I think we look at what's going on in the world. You know, we're looking at a record 28 billion plus crop. You look at the ending stocks for the world, a record 10.6 billion bushels, just a massive crop coming in. We've essentially got the harvest done. We're on the last 6-8% down in Argentina and Australia. Australia, a short crop, Argentina, a record crop. So it's coming, watching those relatively close, and watching the exports. Exports have been real good for hard red winter wheat, say compared to last year. They've been strong, and if they'll continue strong, I think we'll continue to see this price work up. Now in the long run, we got to watch the Black Sea. And the good news out of the Black Sea is their ending stocks just slightly over 400 million bushels. And when you're talking about a 4 billion bushel crop and only 400 million left over, their stocks use ratio is less than 10%. They don't have any extra wheat, and if they have a short crop next year, then our prices will go up. The other things we're watching is, of course, the winter wheat plantings for the United States. The word on the street is that they're going to be lower this year, especially hard red winter wheat plantings, maybe down as low as 10% from last year.
So with all of that involved there, we should hopefully, it sounds like, could be creeping higher with price. If so, what's going to take to bump it up?
Well, I don't think there's very much in the market that can bump it up, say over 20 or 30 cents before we get into late winter or spring. If we have some problems with this crop, you know, we have the planted acres less than last year. We have a winter kill on it. We've got some problems and not going to have a very big harvest. Then we could see a run up in prices in the March, April time period. If you're looking at harvest prices and beyond, then you got to go to the Black Sea. We got to have a crop failure there before we get, you know, $1, $2, or $3 price move.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Kim Anderson, grain marketing specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
Amy Hagerman, our ag policy specialist, joins us now. Amy, we have an important deadline on the horizon.
We sure do. So December 6th is the deadline to sign up for the Market Facilitation Program. Now, this is the program that helps offset some of those losses from trade disputes that we've had in 2018 and 2019. So producers need to go in and talk to their FSA office if they haven't already. This has been open since earlier in the fall. If they haven't already gone in to talk to their USDA FSA office about signing up for this program, now is the moment to go in. You don't really want to miss this.
We've talked about this a few times, but go ahead and refresh our memory on who this applies to and kind of what it involves.
Yeah, absolutely. And this program is a little different from the 2018 program for those who signed up for that one. The 2018 program was one national rate for a select number of crops, both our row crops and specialty crops, and some select livestock as well. The 2019 program is designed a little bit differently. You still have a national level rate for specialty crops, like our pecan producers, for instance, could sign up for the MFP, but it's going to be one national rate, the same rate for everybody. Similarly, for our dairy and our hog producers, it's one rate. They just have to go in and sign up, and they won't expect to see differences county to county. Now this time for our crop producers, it's going to be different. Before, they got a payment for each of their different crops. This time, they're going to aggregate all of the planted acres for the covered crops, and there are more this time, into a single payment, but it's going to be a county level payment. And this has caused some confusion around the state of Oklahoma. Those payments can be as little as $15 per acre, but we have a county with as high as $115 per acre. So it changes things up a little bit in terms of how they expect to get paid and what those payments are based on.
Talk about the number of payments. That varies as well, and that may be contributing to some of the confusion as well.
Absolutely. Now the first payment, which was received back in August for those who had already signed up for this program this summer, was at least $15 and could be as much as 50% of their total county payment. So if you were in a county that had just the minimum payment rate, and in the northwestern counties of our state, we had several of those counties, they received their full MFP payment in that first payment, or what they call tranche or batches, whatever you want to call it. Now the second one is coming up, should be out this week or next week. That is going to be an additional 25% of the total payment. Here's where the confusion comes in. Let's say you're in a county that had a $20 total payment. You received $15 the first time around. So now this additional 25% is actually going to fill you out all the way out to your maximum payment for MFP. And there's the possibility of a third payment in January. So it's not a simple program at all.
Great. Well, I'm sure you'll keep us informed. So thanks for the great information as always. And I'm sure we'll see you again soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Amy. And that does it for our show this week. We'll see you next time at SUNUP.